I'm Charles Borton, 32 years old, from Youngstown, Ohio. As far back as I can remember, at around the age of 4 or 5, my parents had got divorced, and me and my brother ended up living with my mother, and she was an alcoholic. Also raised as Jehovah's Witness with her, and spending every other weekend with my father. He'd be taking us to church, and he was a Christian. So right off the rip, at that age, I was just kind of lost and confused to what was going on in life with my parents, or even what was going on with God, if God was even real, because I was so confused in these religious things going on, and I didn't understand a lot. So I dealt with a lot of rejection in school as a young kid, being the poor kid, the less than, and that was my identity, and so I started carrying a chip on my shoulder, and all through life being a smaller guy and dealing with that. So my mom's drinking just continued to get worse, and it just got to a point where I was just getting tired of it, around when I was like 11 or 12, and I decided to move with my father. He did everything he could for me and my brother. My brother came with me, and so we started our life in Youngstown, and it was totally different, going from a poor kid in the trailer park to the inner city school kid, and it was just two totally different. So I was really lost. At the end of high school, I didn't know what I was going to do, or I didn't really have much of a plan, because all the jobs I was working were kind of dead ends. So I ended up going into the Marine Corps, joined the Marine Corps, spent a little bit of time there. While I was in boot camp, I had my first daughter. My fiance at the time, her mother ended up leaving me, and it screwed me up really bad, emotionally, mentally, and I let it affect me in ways that it shouldn't have, or at least let it carry on to a point that it shouldn't have. And so I got out on a medical discharge from the military, and which ultimately screwed up my plan, because I wanted to retire out of the military, and so I couldn't find a job that was worth my time, or what I thought I was worth, being just real prideful and arrogant from the military. And so I ended up going to bars, drinking, and I ran into somebody and got into selling cocaine. So it got to a point that I stopped caring less and less, wasn't taking care of priorities, responsibilities. I've had my second daughter at this point, and totally neglected the fact that I had kids, really. And even if I was around them, it's like I wasn't even there, because I was so dead to everything. So after about 2 or 3 years after my brother, I'd come home one day, and I'd found my father dead, and that's where a whole nother page flipped. And the day my father passed, I was just getting off felony probation, and they let me off early, and I was all excited, and so I rushed home, and it was around 9 or 10 o'clock in the morning, and I rushed in the house to go tell my father. And my little brother was at college, and I thought it was weird that he was still sleeping on the couch. because he's just an early person, and so I go to wake him up, and I mean he was just frozen stiff. It didn't click into me. I don't know if I didn't just want to believe reality, but I had to go and roll him over so I could look at his face, and then it was bad. It was bad. Like I said, it was like taking my life away from me, because that's just what my father meant to me. That's the first day I shot up heroin. When that happened, it took my life away from me also. So I just stopped caring about everybody, everything. No one or nothing mattered. I was burning bridges everywhere I went, and it came to a point where my little brother, got in trouble. He just got sentenced to prison, and I was left at his house, and obviously I wasn't working, nothing was getting paid. Became an abandoned house, and everything got cut off, and I was just living there, and I was barely living. I was just eating every couple days. I was never felt so tired of life, or so close to hoping something would just end something. And it came down to a point that I had that moment where I actually had to cry out to God, and it took me down to my knees, and I just cried and just begged God to either take my life, because I'm just ruining myself and ruining everybody else. Because it's just so selfish how I'm living, and just either take me or do something with me. And God, and it really happened, and that's when God became real to me in my life. It didn't happen right away, but way quicker than what I expected from somebody I didn't expect. Just within a couple days of how somebody had brought up Teen Challenge, when I've never even heard of this place in Youngstown, and I'm from here. And God's so good, and just brought me here, put all the right people to bring me in, and the way it make things happen. I spent a year, and it was an awesome year. Built all kinds of relationships back with the family, with the kids, and so much more. Best decision I made. Everything's going so much better. Everything's coming back together, and then way more abundantly, because that's what God does.